Thanks for joining us. This is your parliamentary program, Inside the Parliament. Here we keep you abreast with happenings from the national and state houses of assembly. I am Uyedia Orum. Now, the both chambers of the National Assembly resumed plenary after about 3 weeks break, passing the 2026 budget that was jacked up to 68.3 trillion naira. Now, this was after President Bola Tinubu sent a communique to the both chambers of the National Assembly requesting an increase of 9 trillion naira to the 2026 budget. Let's bring you details as it's happened in the both chambers of the National Assembly.
A communication was received from Mr. President proposing adjustments to the 2026 budget. The proposed adjustments were intended to regularize the outstanding legacy capital commitment carried over from the previous appropriation cycle, thereby ensuring that the 2026 fiscal program is not unduly burdened by the unresolved obligation from earlier years. The proposal also sought to accommodate a limited number of strategic interventions in the area of transport, health, and institutional preparedness considered critical to national development and governance continuity.
Based on these proposed adjustments that is brought by Mr. President, we have the Maiduguri-Sokoto Highway, which is going to traverse across the north-central part of the country up to Maiduguri, thereby opening off economic activities, generating multiplier effect and what have you. Again, we have the Calabar-Maiduguri rail project, which has been in the front burner for long, but this government has decided to take the bull by the horn, put it in the budget for the purpose of implementation and to give the south and the northeast a sense of belonging when it comes to the rail project and for the purpose of connectivity and what have you.
This committee has consistently done its job according to the Constitution. What has been remaining over the last 2 years is, of course, the implementation of the Appropriation Act of 2024, 2025, 2026. Hopefully, we hope this time around, the executive will pay a complete faith to a law passed by this National Assembly. That is just my comment.
We people in the Northeast have been crying that we seem to be neglected in terms of developmental projects in this country. But I think this time around, with the inclusion of some key projects, particularly the railway and the highway projects, I think this time around, we have to say, Mr. President, we thank you very much, and we hope, as Senator Ningi said, it's not enough just to propose. The important thing is to implement. If you propose, you don't implement, it is as if you have not done anything. So we hope, with all the support we give, Mr. President, for all these requests, loans and other things, we hope these laudable projects proposed in 2026 will be fully implemented.
And all the committees that tirelessly worked on this 2026 appropriation bill, which has now passed third reading. And I want to say that, yes, indeed, that you've done a good job after months and months of not sleeping, and this is for your country. And our prayer now in the Senate is that God will enable the current president, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to have the necessary revenue to meet up the expenses expected from here for the benefit of our country.
The 2026 budget theme, budget of consolidation, renewal, resilience, and shared prosperity, reflects the executive determination to log in macroeconomic stability, deepening opportunities, and ensure that growth translates into decent jobs, raising incomes, and better quality of life across our federation. The bill, as presented, contains the estimate of the revenue and expenditure of the federal government for the 2026 fiscal year in the aggregate sum of 58,472,628,944,762 naira.
The Housing Committee of Supply considered the report on a bill for an act to amend the Appropriation Act, repeal and enactment to extend the implementation of the capital aspects of the Appropriation Act 2025 from 31st March 2026 to 30 June 2026 and for related matters. In so doing, we have approved clauses 1 to 3, the explanatory memorandum, and the long title of the bill.
Now, still at the same plenary sitting, the lawmakers received a request from President Bola Tinubu for a loan request that will be sourced from a UK bank and Abu Dhabi bank, totaling $6 billion. Now, these loans will be used to fund and rehabilitate ports in Lagos. Take a listen.
President Bola Tinubu in his letters acknowledged that Nigeria's total public debt profile stood at 153.29 trillion naira in 2025, but explained that the new loan request will help in smooth budget implementation and development of key infrastructure.
A structured total return swap external financing program of $5 billion would force Abu Dhabi Bank to support federal government funding and fiscal liquidity management, and in so doing, approve recommendations 1 to 4 of the report.
The Citibank loan project focuses on the development of Apapa and Tinkan ports following agreements reached during President Tinubu's London state visit.
The Housing Committee of Supply considered the report of the Committee on Aid, Loans and Debt Management on the request for approval of $1,945,693.55 UK Export Finance Covered Loan Facility arranged by Citibank.
With Nigeria's external debt standing at $46.98 billion, it is expected that the loans will fast-track earmarked projects to improve the country's economy.
Request for the approval and resolution of the National Assembly to establish a structured total return swap external financing program of up to $5 billion with First Abu Dhabi Bank to support federal funding and fiscal liquidity management. The purpose of this letter is to request for the approval and resolution of the National Assembly pursuant to the provisions of Section 21, Subsection 1 and 27, Subsection 1 of the Debt Management Office Establishment, etc. Act 2003 to establish a structured total return swap, TRS, derivative external financing program from First Abu Dhabi Bank, FAB, of the United Arab Emirates of up to $5 billion, which will be made available to the federal government of Nigeria in tranches. Indicative terms and conditions, the Senate may kindly find on Table 1 summary of the indicative terms and conditions of the loan proposal from FAB, Annexure 1, for its kind consideration, for the kind consideration of the National Assembly and approval. Well, the indicative terms and conditions are herein stated. The amount, indicative pricing, and RNG fee, tenor, collateralization, collateral cover, margining, documentation, termination, triggers, use of proceeds. The use of proceeds will include budget implementation, development of key infrastructure projects which are our priority to the administration and the nation, and repayment of relatively more expensive domestic and external debts in the federal government of Nigeria debt portfolio. It would also enable the federal government of Nigeria to meet other urgent financial needs that may be approved from time to time by the president. Impacts on debt stock and debt service. The Senate is invited to note that the proposed loan in the sum of $5 billion will increase the total public debt stock of the federal government of Nigeria, which at the moment stands at $110.3 billion, about 159.2 trillion as of December 31st, 2025, provisional and projected debt service of 20.4, in fact 20.5 trillion for 2026 accordingly. In view of this, the loan amount will be drawn down in tranches to spread the impact on debt stock and debt service in a sustainable manner. Based on the foregoing, therefore, I wish to request the Senate to, 1, consider and approve the indicative terms and conditions of the loan proposal of up to $5 billion from the First Abu Dhabi Bank, which includes issuance of Naira-denominated foreign exchange, Naira-denominated federal government of Nigeria securities as collateral for the loan, payment of margining in USD cash, and use of proceeds as presented in paragraphs 2 and 4, and issue its resolution that the federal government of Nigeria should establish a structured total return swap derivative external financing program with First Abu Dhabi Bank of the United Arab Emirates of up to $5 billion.
Well, if you just joined us, you're watching Inside the Parliament on AI. Tonight, let's bring you other activities from the both chambers of the National Assembly.
In the hallowed chambers where laws are forged and a nation's destiny is decided.
This is your parliamentary program, Inside the Parliament on AIT.
Voices rise, opinions clash, debates ignite.
We cannot be apologetic in the discharge of our constitutional duties as lawmakers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The burden of proving that the elections have been conducted peacefully and in accordance with law must shift to INEC.
From the Senate to the House of Representatives, this is where policies are tested, laws are crafted, and authority is held to account.
We spoke to some lawmakers on their opinions of the document presented by the President.
Every motion, every argument carries the hopes of millions.
We need more hospitals, more health clinics in communities so that they can effectively take care of the primary health need of our people.
The questions are tough. The exchanges are intense.
Mr. President, you can have your way, but I will have my say. You can use the gavel, and I will use my voice.
And those who want the proviso are 55 in number. And so the proviso says.
But who truly stands for the people? Who is driving the change that defines our tomorrow?
Let us tell ourselves the truth. Why are we here talking about LGBT, GTBT, whatever?
Get the answers on Where Nigeria Decides on Inside the Parliament on AIT every Tuesday, 4:30 p.m.
TerraQ, unwrap joy, unleash taste.
Now, let's take you to the House of Representatives, where there was massive defection of lawmakers to other political parties, one of which is the Chairman House Committee on Downstream Petroleum, Ikenga Imo Gochinyere.
Member representing Idiato North, South Federal Constituency of Imo State, and the Chairman House Committee on Petroleum Resources Downstream. His letter reads as follows. Mr. Speaker, I'm writing to formally notify you and my honorable colleagues in the House of my resignation from the People's Democratic Party, PDP, effective from 2nd January 2026. After deep reflection and extensive consultations with my constituents, I have decided to join the Action People's Party, APP. I'm confident that my new political party, Action People's Party, APP, better aligns with the aspirations of my people and provides a more suitable and stable platform to continue to represent the interests of my constituency effectively.
Now, on the floor of the Senate, a motion was raised on killings in Plateau State, raised by Senator Ticket Blank, who represents Plateau Central. We caught up with him on an interview, and he spoke to us about the reasons for these killings and what the government can do to curb these menaces. Senator Ticket Blank also spoke about the 9 trillion naira increase request which the National Assembly has approved in the 2026 budget. Take a listen. Good to have you on our program inside the Parliament.
Thank you. It's another opportunity to have you around me as usual. I'm very grateful.
Yes, you raised a very serious motion on the floor of the Senate about insecurity in Plateau State. Yeah. Of course, the police have said over 20 persons were killed and several persons have been displaced. Why do you think we keep having this recurring, menace of insecurity?
If your territory is accommodative, if there's no understanding, a clash can come between you and somebody who comes in. But if there's respect and mutuality between the two of you, you will stay longer, or you stay harmoniously.
But you think, in your motion, you had mentioned that there have been several efforts, both from the federal, from the state government as well, but it doesn't seem to be abating. We keep hearing this issue of, crises and killings. Even during the Christmas, there was one that happened before this one. Why does it keep reoccurring despite these efforts?
It keeps reoccurring for me because of several factors. One, inability for us once a while to arrest, prosecute, and ruthlessly crush the offenders of these criminal acts. If you do that, it deters any intended person to go into criminality. But if criminals come, they do what they want to do, and they go back scot-free. Tomorrow, even if you are hired to go, you will go because you know you return back safely. And again, because they come and go, they engage into kidnapping, and they make money in kidnapping, and they have resources to buy weapons. I tell you, and at a period where there is a lot of unemployment, if most of the youths are swept and given employments, those that are hiring youth for criminal act will not get the youth available. There's unemployment, and because of unemployment, there are youths that are energetic that can be hired to go into this. So unemployment is an aspect of it, but for the fact that we've lost moral, we've lost our sense of nationality, we've lost what is called brotherhood in us, you can easily be hired to do all those ungodly acts.
But you see, there are some persons that say that security is actually local, and that's why the issue of state police have come up a lot of times. In fact, just recently, the Deputy Senate President received a report from the Nigerian police on what the framework should look like for a state police to be established. Even the Senate leader even talked about the fact that National Assembly has commenced work. Is that really the way to go? Looking at the fact that the president have even endorsed it?
There is need for a state police. Well, you would say the state police would have been more mentally equipped to deal with criminality in a specific place for reasons like the fact that the person is familiar with the terrain, the person, the commander-in-chief of that outfit is within the state, recruitments are done within the locals, and therefore the locals will easily know a stranger and who is not a stranger. So the ability of the locals among themselves to identify criminals and then the ability of them to be familiar with the environment is higher than someone who is coming from somewhere very strange. So you would not, when you look at those variables, you will now believe that the state police might more better on real time be able to meet up and arrest criminality. But then another aspect that we're afraid, if we will behave the way we look at the national police, that we think that probably this is from another state, or they are bringing people that are not your tribes, or they are bringing people that are not your religion, you will discover that Nigerians have tribes in each of the states. One tribe will feel that the other tribe are dominant, and they have more in the police force. And therefore, what we are seeing at national, we may even see it at that level.
But the fear of so many people beyond tribe is political, that maybe the chief executive of most of the state may actually take advantage of it, not allowing those who are not in their party to thrive in their state. Do you agree with that?
At the national level, you have a president who decides who goes where. At the state, you still have, so people are scared of what the national will do. At the state level, you still have the state. If you go to a local, we have the local government chairman. If you go to work, you have a councillor. So we keep on having that authority down the stream. My sister, I tell you, whoever is the governor, whoever is the local government chairman, whoever is the legislature, whoever is the president of the Republic of Nigeria, if brotherhood, sisterhood, humanity is imbibed in our ideological thinking, I assure you, it will eliminate all those things.
But you see, let's talk a bit about the role of the National Assembly. You know, several times we've seen, you know, the various committees, especially of security, someone heads up security agencies to brief them on what is happening, you know, steps taken so far to curb some of these, you know, anomalies. You know, what report do you guys even have when you summon some of them? Have they really made any impact? Do you think the security agencies are overwhelmed? Have they even lived up to expectation?
Our oversight on them can be limited in terms of technicality. But again, when you discuss with them, when you go on oversight, real oversight, it gives you the opportunity to know the burden that is in them, and subsequently, when you are treating them in terms of appropriation, you would definitely know what actually are their problems and where to meet their problems. We encourage appropriation of more funds for them to meet up the technological aspect of tackling criminality. And again, we also talk about increment in personnel and welfare.
There was also the issue of borrowing of about $6 billion that was expeditiously approved. Are we really seeing the benefit of some of these borrowings? Because the debt profile of the country seems to be on the rise since the government came into power. And you're also a member of the All Progressives Congress.
This is one of the very few periods that borrowings are also taken care in terms of making payments. The policies and decisions of this government are very futuristic. This government seems to face reality the way it is, removing oil subsidy, so that we face reality instead of deceiving ourselves. And again, we borrow, and attached to borrowing is payment. We don't borrow and allow payment not to be done. And that is why, in as much as we are borrowing, we still find the debt profile coming down because of adequate payment. Out of the borrowing that we're borrowing for about 6 billion. I made arrangement for the payment of 16 trillion as payment of debt. So you borrow and you are paying. That's a good trick. And again, if you look at it, the actual revenue, expected revenue, is much more than the deficit. And the fulfillment of deficit is through borrowing and also selling of bonds. So which now implies that we're not borrowing what is too much for us, our borrowing is not too heavy for us, and our borrowing is attached with payment.
Well, Nigerians actually feeling the impact of this borrowing. Because we get to hear this morning, but what is on ground is what is the issue?
My sister, I want you to know some of the, especially this tangible, seeable, futuristic projects, such as the legacy projects, has coming back from Jos. We're lucky that from our motion asking Mr. President to include the Akwanga, Jos, Bochi, Gomberot as part of his legacy projects, which was unanimously supported with all the prayers, and Mr. President has included us as the 6th
agenda in the legacy project.
She's been included.
On my trip, a long time ago, on my trip, they awarded a contract. The contractor has gone to site. I was at Gondo. You need to see the site where the contractors have downloaded their materials. If you borrow, or if in your infrastructural projects, and I'm inclusive, I'm happy. Okay. Let me tell you, man, if you look at, even in the budget, you have about 3 trillion for infrastructural development. You have about, for insecurity, 5 trillion. Health and agriculture and education, 50 trillion. You would now know that if this budget is fairly executed, it will stabilize macroeconomy. Okay. Money will be in the hands of Nigerians. For me, I still feel that the executive should do their best to be in position to generate all the funds they're expecting, and subsequently for whatever borrowing to meet up the deficit of the budget. If it is spent as intended, I assure you that Nigerians would be very happy with what's going on in the country.
All right, distinguished Senator Decade Plan, thank you so much for joining us on our program Inside the Parliament.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Very careful.
Well, that's our package for today on Inside the Parliament on AI. To join us again next week, I am Oyedia Orum, and do follow us on all our social media platforms for any edition you have missed of the program. Do have a lovely day.